Hello, friends. Well, our voices might be a little scratchy today, as we're still both coming off of being sick.
Yeah, I'm gonna sound a little bit like a frog.
And you're nice and bundled up because she actually has had a little fever that persisted. Seemed to be over it now, but
I'm all done, but I'm just being, careful with myself.
yeah. Oh, so this is about feeling a powerlessness. Somebody actually asked us to make this video, and I think that's something a lot of people are feeling right now, huh?
Oh, there are so many contributing factors to that. I think just in regular everyday life, we can feel powerless, whether it's our job or maybe a relationship we're in or our health. But then if you look outward to the state of the world, whether it's a massive virus or politics or all the different things that are going on, you can start to feel like I'm just this one little person.
And what
Yeah,
difference can you make?
I'm just this one little
And
person.
how can you stand up to all these massive forces?
Yeah,
And
it's a good question.
it was a very good question.
Really good question.
I put us right in the sun.
Do you want to move?
No, it's okay.
Okay. I could try to too bad I'm not taller. Yeah.
There we
come
go. The real answer to this question, to me, really goes into the spiritual realm. And the spiritual realm, at least in my world, is not actually all that spiritual, in that it has to do with this thing we call ego, this construct that we've created. And I spoke about this a little bit in the last video. If we have this basic underlying idea that I'm a little Kenton in this gigantic world that's largely hostile, then no wonder we feel powerless.
Yeah, I feel like our way of looking at the world, our very, very foundational way of I'm a little me and there's all these different parts, breaks everything up, and then it just sets us up for feeling powerless. It's like,
Obviously,
yeah,
we're gonna right.
Where is the connection? Where do we have any of our own meaning or value? And then it almost falls into the kind of whole might equals right, which isn't very conducive to feeling powerful or secure.
There is, I think, when we have a cultural paradigm, which our lives are filled with them, when we have a cultural paradigm, it's very hard to see outside of it.
Yeah.
They used to say that the Western mind just could not grasp that Eastern concept, which ideally, their spirituality revolves around this egolessness, or changing the way that we see ourselves and our relationship with the world. But because we've been brought up in this paradigm, it's really tough to break out of it. So even though we're going to slip back, I think, today into talking about this from that angle over and over, we're kind of going to be talking a little bit more about dealing with some of the symptoms of this disease rather than trying to cure the disease itself, which would maybe be more for the other channel.
That's definitely a deeper subject that takes a lot longer, and a lot of wisdom traditions speak to that. That's what kind of the whole quote goal is to free ourselves from that viewpoint, because we don't have enough time to cover that right now. We're just going to deal with the surface level and the symptoms and see if we can alleviate some of the suffering that we might have, and then maybe that will allow us to go deeper at some point, to want to seek more. So here we are.
Should we jump in?
Yeah.
The real question this person posed was why we feel powerless. And so that first answer aside about the ego, we can look at our culture, and it kind of seems like our culture teaches us.
Well, it's pretty much everywhere. I think our culture talks about, especially I'm thinking of the Western culture here, I'm thinking of the standard American culture, which is that we need to be independent, we are individuals, and it's almost as though we prize individuality and independence over anything else. And from my personal perspective, then we leave out the whole idea of community, just all sorts of different ways that we're connected, not just to other people, but to our environment. And so that interconnectivity is really a missing piece. Just like when we go out into ecology and things like that, we often don't see a whole picture. Same with Western medicine. We're stepping back from that holistic viewpoint, and that has its advantages to be true. There are reasons that it's good to be independent, it's good to have an individuality, but at the same time, that isn't the whole truth of it. But we are just so skewed, the balances are so heavy on that. Be independent, be an individual. And then I just have to go on my little rant here. Well, that sets it up perfectly for a culture that's a consumer-based culture, a capitalist-based culture, where now I can take advantage of you being an individual and being independent and say, you're not good enough. You standing alone there aren't good enough, so buy my product, buy my services, follow my belief system, and then you will be okay.
That is it, I think. You can see. So we have the culture, that cultural paradigm, and that creates a system of trade and commerce that is based on that whole idea of you seeing yourself as small, an independent, small, powerless being that I can make more powerful by selling you my certain vehicle, certain clothes.
Belief systems.
Belief systems, yes. Whatever it's going to be, if you take my thing, then you will be more powerful. But the funny thing is it never really works.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing is we're engaging in the system that's undermining us.
Yeah.
So when I say, okay, I'm going to go buy this awesome gun that's going to make me feel so much more powerful, or this awesome vehicle that's going to make me feel so much more powerful, I'm just feeding that continued weakness that I've created inside of myself, that convincing myself that I am powerless unless I have those things.
Essentially, you're just strengthening you're strengthening what's making you feel powerless. You're not helping yourself out. And the funny thing is that no matter how much wealth you have, or how many cars or guns, or whatever it might be, personal power, fame, etc., in the end, you can be taken down just as easily as anybody else. I mean, we are all going to die in the end. Unless, let me know if you have never died, then we can have a conversation. But, I mean...
They probably haven't died if they haven't watched this.
Wait a second.
There's no watching this.
Okay, skip that part entirely.
But I know what you mean.
What I'm saying is that I feel that we're all going to die. And there's also lots of things that can happen besides that. We can have our fortune taken away. We can have people who only like us because we had fame. And when that goes away, they go away. So all I'm saying is that kind of power to me doesn't actually seem very secure. And I think that we know that. No matter what's going on, no matter how much we have, we know in the end that isn't true security.
There was a Zen story that I think would fit in right here.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. There was this is in, I don't know, we'll say it's in Japan. I don't know, probably, if it's Zen. China. But no, I think this was a Zen story instead of a Taoist one. And so there's an invading army, and they're going around to all the villages, and everybody's fleeing and bowing down to this general who was really not a nice guy. And he came into this one village, and he heard that there was this old man, this Zen master, that was not pledging allegiance to him. So he went in and saw this old man, and the old man was sitting there in meditation and didn't stop what he was doing, didn't bow. And the general got very angry and drew his sword, and he said, "Do you know that you are standing in front of a man who can run you through without blinking an eye?" And the Zen master calmly said, "Do you know that you're standing in front of a man who you can run through and he will not blink an eye?" And the power of this is very contrary to our usual way of thinking. I've been thinking about superhero movies.
Okay.
And in a lot of our movies, where basically whoever kicks the but of the other person. Whoever's
I
alive,
know the @$sign.
whoever's alive in the end
Right.
has won, and whoever is dead has lost. And that has been so ingrained into us that we can kind of forget that maybe it's not a benefit to live an extra 30 years if you're miserable and you're constantly trying to just influence your power over every other person around you because you feel so weak and powerless inside. That maybe living for one day and being fully alive and present, that person has won over the person that goes on for 30 more years.
Yeah. Oh, whoa. Minor earthquake.
And that's really hard to wrap our minds around, but I think there's a real truth and essential powerfulness to recognizing that if we are present, if we are here, if we are enjoying this moment, then in a way we have won way more than we will win if we go forward and we keep buying all kinds of new stuff and trying to fill a hole that never gets filled.
Yeah, not by buying things, not by believing what other people tell us to. It reminds me of the song that has the satisfied mind.
Oh yeah, satisfied mind.
Yeah, that there truly isn't anything more valuable that will give you more, quote, power than to have a satisfied mind, to have a satisfied being, one that can be present, one that does recognize the fleetingness of life, of this moment, and takes the joy and the gratitude of what is there. And that is true satisfaction that fills us up. It's kind of a fountain within us that is completely, replenishing us and renewing us all the time. And that's something that can't be taken away from us. And so even though it doesn't make sense in our modern culture, finding ways that we can cultivate that are probably going to help us have way more power than anything we do externally.
And one of the weird things is that when we start to cultivate that kind of internal power, then if we get that awesome new car, that awesome new gun, whatever it is that we were going to get before, we can actually appreciate it in a way that we couldn't before. Because if I'm just trying to fill up my life, this empty hole with externals, it's an endless hole. I can keep stuffing stuff down into
pit.
it. Right. But it never fulfills that hunger. And I'm always captured. I'm always owned by that continued desire, that continued wanting. And that is a powerlessness. When I am always wanting, I'm always underlying my life with fear that I am not enough and trying to fill it up. That it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, we've all tried it probably many, many, many times. And I think for me, at least, I've known a lot of people who try that and then back to the same place. Why am I still here? Why is this still happening? Because we're still pursuing the wrong course of action. And I'm really glad you brought up fear, because fear can rob us of our power. And so looking at what is fearful, confronting what you're afraid of, and asking yourself really good questions about what you fear, trying to actually see. We did a podcast on this the last season about the things that we fear versus what we actually should, quote, fear. And I think it boils down to that we truly have control. We don't have control necessarily of what happens in our external world, okay? We could have our health fail at any point in time. We could get in a car accident. We could, all these different things. However, how we choose to take that information in, how we choose to respond to our externals, the attitude we have, that is within our control, always within our control. And when we actually know that, and when we can be the master of that, is, I think, when we start to enter into the realm of being powerful.
Yeah. Gosh, speaking of powerful and power not so full, I'm freezing. Hawaii made me weak. Jeez.
It's a cold wind out today. I'm like, my eyes are watering a little bit.
Yeah, I gotta.
Do you need to put your sweater on?
No,
Okay.
I'm good. I'm gonna, you know what I did the other day? I went and
Rolled
the
in the
first
snow.
Yeah, I had to get out there and get right in the snow with my bare skin because you gotta start back gaining that strength back.
Okay, so here's the deal. Just like you're doing that with your physical form, we can do that with our internal selves, our power selves, if you will. How do we do this? What are the ways that we can start? I mean, I want to know because I feel like I could always use that. A true sense of security is probably the greatest gift we can have within ourselves. To
Yeah.
walk through life not having fear, knowing ourselves, and being able to choose our responses. So, how do I begin that?
Well, everybody knows the first thing that we're gonna push is mindfulness. And the reason we're always pushing that is that if your mind is operating without your consent, if it's just
Autopilot.
doing its own thing,
Yeah.
then you just are completely at the mercy of whatever it's doing.
Well, how can you know if you don't know? So,
Right.
you can't even do anything if you're not aware that something is going on. So, the more that we practice mindfulness techniques, the more we can notice, oh, look it. Whenever I get around this group of people and they start talking about this, I feel powerless. Okay, let's start looking at that. But if you don't know, then you're just going to react.
Yeah. You start to think, you identify yourself with those thoughts. I am powerless. I am scared. Instead of realizing that these are things that are happening, an activity in your mind. And that's all mindfulness is. It's nothing magical. It's just becoming aware of your mind's activity so that you can see it. And when you can see what's happening around you, when you have awareness, then you gain control over that environment, in this case, the environment of our mind. So, mindfulness practices, meditation, that is step one, basically always.
Yeah, mindfulness and awareness are such good tools to have on your side. What else?
So we talked about making a shift from external to internal.
Yeah, we talked about that right away in the beginning.
Yeah.
Realizing that we cannot arrange our externals perfectly. It will never happen long term. It might happen for a short little bit before the next thing comes in and we have to continue. It's like the person who's spinning all the plates and you're like, no, that one and then that one, and you're constantly, I mean, look how tired I'm going to be doing that. When if we just realize it's about me, it's about inside of myself, and first of all, I think it's about how do I choose to respond versus react. But secondly, it's that even deeper stage, which is, do I even have a me that is separate? So those are the couple different levels. And if we just shift and start working on that internal stuff, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to do because our culture has trained us completely differently. We haven't grown up in an internal focused culture, a meditative culture. We've grown up in this culture that says you will fulfill yourself through externals. So we have to make a conscious shift. Now, something we call the response shift or response transformation can help with that. And that is to notice when you are in reaction. In our world, this happens all the time. You're going to watch a news program and you're going to find yourself having reaction-based stimuli. So, having reaction-based reactions. What am I trying to say? So, what I'm trying to say is that I watch that news program and then I am going to find myself having fear, having anxiousness, having feelings of tension. And these have a sensation. If I can start to become aware of that physical sensation, kind of a tightness and a holding myself, or maybe a crunching, some tightness here.
Sure, that's not cold.
It's cold. It's very small here. Very much the same reactions we have with cold, right? I can actually make myself feel more cold right now if I
By
start
tensing against
going
it.
like that.
Yeah.
If I relax into it, it doesn't have that same sensation of cold. So the same thing with these stimuli that are coming in. I watch the news program, I'm going to find myself tensing. You might feel it physically, you might just feel it emotionally. But becoming aware of when you are having that sort of a reaction, and all that takes is being aware of tension. Whenever you notice it, say, wow, look at that. I'm having tension. That probably is a signal that I'm in reaction. And then see if you can shift to response. When I shift to response, I look at it more rationally. I look at the news program and I go, okay, yeah, last week this talking head was saying this and making this prediction. And
now they're saying the completely opposite
now
thing. Wait a second.
Yeah, you know what? This is just some guy, and he is probably not a repository of wisdom, and might even question, why am I even watching this?
Well, I'm going to jump in and just say that if we liken ourselves to a computer, I'm going to take the current technological advancement and compare myself to it, because that's what we do. So right now I'm going to say it. If we're a computer and we have an operating system, then if somebody says something to me and it's a remark that I haven't explored or examined, and maybe it makes me upset or whatever, I'm going to have a pop-up window. And that pop-up window is going to be they don't know, blah, blah. It's going to be a mental judgment. It's probably going to be that physical reaction. It's going to happen instantaneously because my operating system is programmed. When that comes in, this is the response. So, Reaction. I can completely override that, because within me is actually the user, is the program or whatever, the ultimate. I can look and say, oh, there's my reaction window coming up. But you know what? Let's just close that window, because I don't need to have that kind of reaction this time. How do I want to respond? What do I want to choose going forward? So it's really important to remember that you can close that pop-up window at any point in time. Maybe you do have a blow-up. Maybe you do make a judgment. Anytime down the road, it's okay to say, whoa, it's okay to use that mindful awareness and to stop. That's fine. That strengthens us for the next time.
Thanks for that reminder, because it's really easy to feel like you have failed if you do react. We're all going to react, and especially when we start being aware of our reaction, we're going to catch ourselves in it a lot more, because we're just developing mindfulness of something that's been operating mindlessly before. So don't be hard on yourself. Use that as the moment to move into response.
Well, and what's neat about when you are having responses and you're choosing is that at first life is a little bit like reading a book, and you just get to read the story and you don't have any control. And then all of a sudden you shift a little and it's a choose your own adventure.
Oh, remember those choose your own adventures? Yeah,
so
those are great.
Like you're reading and then you get to choose. If you do this response, turn to page 2. If you do this response, turn to page 8. But eventually, as you free yourself up and you do that internal work, you begin to write your own story. You get to choose. You become the character that chooses the response. And that is super exciting, because then the adventures that you can have are unlimited.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, there's one final thing that you can do,
okay,
and that is gratitude. It reworks our mind from being in, I'm going to fill it up with this, to being grateful for what you have right now. That is the key to enjoying anything in life, whether it's that brand new shiny thing that you just got, or it's something that you've had a long time in your life. If you cultivate gratitude, you will make tremendous shifts away from fear, away from that hole that is never filled, toward a feeling of powerfulness in your life rather than powerlessness.
Towards that satisfied mind, where you can sit. So I think I just want to finish by saying that we're talking about power, and in my way of seeing, when the externals of the world come in, when we allow them, I should say, to change us, when the externals dictate how I'm feeling, how I'm reacting, how I am going about things, then I've given my power away. I'm powerless. But when there's the externals, even if they're discouraging, even if it's challenging, but I see them and I say, you know what? I still am going to go forward, and I'm going to believe in these things that I think are beautiful. I'm still going to shine my bright light. I am still going to be grateful. I'm still going to be mindful. Then I have true power. And so that's what true power is to me, is that ability to just continue with growing my internal joy and gratitude-filled self.
Wow. All right. Thank you. for being with us.
I think it would be.
Becca has something, I'm sure.
I just want to hear about what you think about this and what gives you a sense of power and where you feel like your power is taken away from you, and also just maybe speaking a little bit to that deeper level of what makes you feel as though you are really connected, that there is not a separation between yourself and the rest of the world. Okay.
Love to you all. Can't wait to talk with you in the comments.
Stay warm and stay safe and stay grateful.